This is the Genesis Expo, a creation museum in the UK. I visited this den of neuron murderers during the summer of 2009. I documented as much of my visit as possible and put together a 3-part video cataloguing the experience as a warning to all those who thought the UK was impervious to this level of organised anti-science propaganda. I wish to thank PZ Myers for his promotion of these videos and their message. Now, however, as promised, I present for your enjoyment a choice debunking of certain exhibits in the expo, and for dessert I will offer up a section of one display that I think most of you will actually agree with. To start, I give you the quote mine.
To suppose that the eye, with all its innumerable contrivances for adjusting focus to different distances, for admitting different light, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberration, could have been formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest degree.
Charles Darwin, in his book, The Origin of Species.
It is such a staple of creationist soundbites, I would not be surprised if some of you could quote the rest of the passage. For those who do not already know, this is what Darwin wrote next. Yet reason tells me that if numerous gradations from a perfect and complex eye to one very imperfect and simple, each grade being useful to its possessor, can be shown to exist. If further, the eye does vary ever so slightly, and the variations be inherited, which is certainly the case, and if any variation or modification in the organ be ever useful to an animal under changing conditions of life, then the difficulty of believing that a perfect and complex eye could be formed by natural selection, though insuperable by our imagination, can hardly be considered real. How a nerve comes to be sensitive to light hardly concerns us more than how life itself first originated. But I may remark that several facts make me suspect that any sensitive nerve may be rendered sensitive to light, and likewise to those coarser vibrations of air which produce sound. As for other quotes in this booth, they are not quite so old as Darwin, but still some 4 decades removed from the present. Yet others misattributed, taken out of context, and those people given the dubious honour of being cited as the originator are given false credentials. None of this, I'm sure, will shock any of you.
Evolutionism is a fairy tale for grown-ups. This theory has helped nothing in the progress of science. It is useless.
Professor Louis Benoit, Director of Research at the French National Centre of Scientific Research.
Now on to the soup course. In this display it is argued that if the theory of abiogenesis is correct, then we should from time to time find new life in soup cans. Memories of Peanut Butter Man come flooding back. Well, despite the fact that abiogenesis is far more complicated a process than is being portrayed, involving a range of environmental factors such as the presence of lead-clay catalysts, and despite the fact that the process of abiogenesis had the entire world as its reaction vessel, in comparison to a small tin can. Despite all of this and more, the makers of this display could not even follow their own recipe book. How many of the tins of soup so far produced have allowed their contents to be exposed to sunlight and thunderstorms? How many contain marsh gas? And perhaps most obviously, where is the billion-year-old tin of soup? This next creationist staple really raises the bar of stupidity. In this display, the bombardier beetle is held up as an irreducibly complex organism, with its defense mechanism presented as useless or suicidal, if not intelligently constructed. In actual fact, the evolution of this defense mechanism has been examined in depth, and several good videos addressing the issue already exist on this subject. In brief, the chemicals that make up the explosive charge are unpalatable and provide some measure of protection from predators for that reason. Over time, glands that produce these chemicals as secretions adapted to produce more foul-tasting chemicals, increasing in size and developing into a reaction chamber. The more disturbed point that is to be addressed in this display is the statement that dinosaurs possessed these sorts of chambers in their skulls, and gave rise to legends of fire-breathing dragons. Well, dinosaurs did have chambers in their skulls, this is a fact. These chambers, however, had a selection of uses. A common function attributed to many is that of a resonating chamber. Just like an acoustic guitar has a hollow body to produce a louder sound, these chambers could amplify their calls. Many other functions, including olfaction, are proposed uses of these structures. There is, however, a creature alive today with a large chamber in its skull. Humans. Whilst many humans have used this chamber to aid the production of a great quantity of hot air, none, as far as I am aware, have actually managed to ignite it into flame. These examples of ridiculous, moronic, stereotypical creationist drivel are of course only a mere sample of the content of the Genesis Expo. There is, however, hope. Sometimes the old adage rings true. The largest gold nugget is buried under the most fecal matter. In this place, I found they had taken a grasp of a scientific fact and drawn a conclusion from it that I, and I suspect most of you, would agree with.
Genes from ethnic groups of mankind show that we come from one common ancestor, so no race is superior or inferior.
Now, if only that understanding could be carried over to the rest of science, the people who run this expo might shut it down and devote their resources to a charitable cause instead.